Imagine you have a national platform to share important messages, and someone gives your father a gift that saves his life. That message can now save others.
My greatest asset through this all is having a story and really trying to show people how close to home this is for so many Americans.
That's Miss Tampa 2024, Kasana Fink. I'm Monica Fox, Senior Director of Outreach and Government Relations for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, and your host for this episode of The Journey Continues. Kasana's here to share how she's working to raise awareness about organ donation to help save others.
Kasana, how'd you get involved with pageant?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me today. That intro was beautifully done.
Thank you.
That was amazing. I got into pageants. Actually, my mom, she did pageants, a couple pageants when she was younger. And when I was about 13 years old, she told me, you know what? You need money to go to college. And the Miss America organization provides scholarships specifically for education. I have a little background in pageants. This is a great idea. Let's do it. And I just remember looking at her and thinking she was absolutely crazy. So I listened to her. I borrowed a gown, really had no idea what I was getting into. I remember we had a huge fight about my interview dress because she sent me in wearing something she would have worn in the 80s, which was a navy blue Calvin Klein dress that went past my knees, pantyhose, and 1-inch kitten heels. And from that moment, I was like, this is not going to be good. But you know what? I had the most incredible time, and I won my first local title that night. Even though I was a hot mess express, they were gracious enough to give me a title that night. And I went on to Miss Florida's Outstanding Teen. So this is the teen version of what I now compete in. And it's really there to prepare young women with the skills to eventually become Miss Florida, but also with the skills for interviews and college prep and to secure scholarships. It really was an incredible experience being a young woman, a teenager, and immediately just being surrounded by like-minded women and looking to the women who were competing for the job of Miss Florida. I knew I wanted to be like them one day. I wanted to have the confidence, the poise, the interview skills. And I truly feel that I am who I am today because of beginning to compete over a decade ago.
That is amazing. So what was your first title?
My first title was Miss Lake City's Outstanding Teen. And it was interesting because prior to that, I had never even stepped foot in Lake City. But very quickly, I fell in love with the title. And it really was more of a Central Florida title. So I'm from Florida. And it was just a great first year experience. And I competed for 2 more years after that in teen. And I took a hiatus where I went to college. I lived in London for a little bit. I lived in New York. And then I came back to competing. This is my 3rd year back as a Miss. So it's been a whole full circle experience.
That is awesome. I truly love it. You've had an awesome time traveling the world. So you finished college and then came back to do pageants, yet you still have the opportunity to win more scholarships. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I graduated undergrad from the University of Florida debt-free. And that was I know. That was such a gift to my family because it really alleviated a lot of stress off my parents. And I know we'll go into it in a little bit, but my dad being sick for some of my high school years, I think really added that extra element too, because he wasn't working. And it was just a great way to get a platform to share the message about organ donation through my titles and Miss America organization, because every young woman has something that they promote and they have a heart for service for it. But it also gave me the opportunity to be educated. It's also what's paying for my master's degree right now.
That is wonderful. And I just love the idea, when people look at pageants and maybe they see it on TV, you think it's just about beauty. And it's clear that it's about so much more you having a platform and being able to earn scholarships and all of that, that is just really wonderful. So yes, let's talk about your dad and his kidney disease. When did that start?
Well, actually, he is a liver
Oh, I'm sorry.
recipient.
Yeah, liver.
No, it's okay. He, through his experience, though, his kidneys suffered a lot of distress. And so we kind of saw both sides of that. But he became sick when I was a freshman in high school. So I was 14 years old and didn't know much about organ donation. I think it's really relevant to always think back to that, especially when I'm teaching students about the importance of organ donation, because if it were not for an organ procurement organization that came into my high school and taught about organ donation, when my father became sick a couple weeks later, I would have had no idea what was going on. And I'm just very grateful for that hour of kind of the Cliff Note versions of what organ donation is and why it's important, because when my dad was sick, I at least had that to fall back onto, and understanding the significance of what it is and understanding how the process works.
Yes. And so he must have been really sick. I know the liver journey is not easy. It's a difficult one. How'd that impact you as a teenager?
It really was a humbling experience. I think when you're a teenager, you really believe the world revolves around you. I think more teenagers than not only see things through their perspective. So then to have my dad become sick and only have a 3% chance of survival when he first arrived to the hospital, to really seeing the journey of him almost becoming unrecognizable, and then having to see my mom work two jobs, be his sole caregiver, early mornings, late nights at the hospital, fighting for adequate health care. It was one of those things that really just taught me the important things in life, and also really highlighted advocacy to me and how you can make a change and a difference and impact people when you're willing to truly lead with, just humanizing topics and sharing your story. I mean, that's been my greatest asset through this all, is having a story and really trying to show people how close to home this is for so many Americans.
Yes. And I think it's awesome that you really, kind of leaned into it and used it in order to help others. That is so important. I know that you had many emotional effects to deal with based on his illness. How'd you deal with that?
So there was a moment when he was sick, and it took me a really long time to be able to share this story. He had lost everything about him that really made him him, his mannerisms, his humor. I think he was probably half his body weight, really something that a lot of individuals who have loved ones on the wait list can attest to. I had a dream at the peak of his sickness, and in this dream, I was younger and he was healthy, and we were playing on this playground that I grew up going to. And it was almost a little bit like a flashback, I would say. But I just remember hearing his laugh and hearing his voice. And I woke up completely distraught because I didn't know if that was the last time I would see such an accurate depiction of who my dad was when he was healthy. And that really was one of the most devastating moments throughout the whole process. But I also think that solidified my purpose and my why, because I recognized if my family was going through this and feeling so hopeless and helpless and not really having a roadmap on how to deal with emotions or how to deal with the process of receiving a transplant and waiting for a transplant, then I knew that there were over 100,000 other families on the transplant list that were going through the same thing.
That's such
And
an
I just
amazing,
really,
that's an amazing statement.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. There's so many things in life that sometimes you have to be impacted by on a personal level until you truly understand the significance. And I just kind of want to get ahead of that sometimes and remind people of how close to home this can be. And that's why you should care so deeply for it.
Absolutely. Just stating that the roadmap for people who are waiting for a transplant and the fact that they're are 100,000 people on that list is just incredible because that roadmap really doesn't exist. And it's a difficult, very difficult place to be. And the fact that you recognize that as a teenager is just absolutely incredible. And I salute you for that. So it's been a while now. How has his health progressed?
He is doing absolutely wonderful. I think about it all the time, truly, that if he did not have a selfless donor, all the moments that he would have missed since him being sick. Like, I want to say a year and a half after he received his transplant, he got to walk me across the football field for homecoming court. Then he got to be at my college graduation and, well, God willing, be at my wedding. I mean, there's just so many moments that he's been able to be there for. We just feel surrounded by blessings. My family does because of this gift. But also, I'm just always praying that his health continues to stay good. As we know, it does come with a sense of being immune compromised. So we always keep a close eye on him. He did just have a hernia surgery because he had a hernia on his incision. So he went back down to Jackson Memorial and his surgeons operated on that, and he's doing great. But it was a good moment to reflect on how different this journey was to Jackson Memorial compared to a decade ago when he was speeding down there for his transplant.
Tell me about that. Tell me about when he got his transplant, getting that call, and how that worked out for your family.
So we were waiting, and this is a little long, so I'll try and condense it. But we were waiting and waiting on the transplant list at UF Shands, which is an incredible hospital. I've worked with them very close, especially going to the University of Florida. But we were approaching a year that he was on that transplant wait list, and my dad just kept getting progressively worse and worse, and ebbs and flows, and all the things that come along with just seeing your body continue to decline. And we had a caseworker that was so honest with my family. And, I don't think that they necessarily were supposed to say this, but they came up to my mom and said, the Shands transplant list is so competitive that by the time your husband is at the top of the list, I really do not think that he will be able to survive the wait. His numbers have to be so bad to get up there, and then for him to survive long enough, I just don't really know if this is his best option. And I would recommend signing up on other transplant wait lists. We didn't even know that was an option. And so we put his name down on the transplant list at Jackson Memorial. And a couple weeks later, he received a call that there was a match, and, my family sped down to Miami. We're from Ocala, so that's about a 4.5 hour drive. I'm almost positive they were going 110 miles per hour. They were just trying to get down there. My dad is prepped for surgery. He's under anesthesia. They wheel him back into the operating room. My mom's waiting in the waiting room. And the one thing happens that you absolutely do not want to happen when you have a loved one getting a surgery, and that's she got a call 20 minutes into this, 4 to 6 hour window that they were supposed to have him back there. And the surgeon goes, Miss Fink, we have a problem. And my mom's like, what is it? And he goes, unfortunately, we believe the liver has been compromised. There are nodules on it, and we know that other organs in the donor's body tested positive for cancer. This is now a high-risk transplant. Do you want to move forward? And she asked the surgeon, if this was your loved one, what would you do? If this was your daughter, your wife, your brother, what would you do? And he said, I would not move forward with this transplant. He said this to my mom, and it's always stuck with us. We do not just want the first organ, we want the right one. And which is such a hard concept when there's such a lack of supply. I mean, it's like gold, right? Like you feel like you're so close to the second chance at life, and now you're having to turn it down. But my mom followed the doctor's advice, and as soon as my dad woke up, he knew. He looked at my mom, he said, I didn't get it, did I? And she said, no, but it's okay. And he was like, I'm going to die waiting, aren't I? And my mom was like, no, you are not. Like, this is going to work out. It's, keep up the hope, keep up the faith. But I truly think this is one of the lowest points that my family experienced, because at that time his kidneys were really showing signs of distress. He was losing all hope. Like he was waiting to die at that point. It would be a couple weeks after that we received another call. He went down there and had the most successful transplant possible, truly like a poster child for a liver transplant. He was trying to drive 2 days later. We had to reel him in. We're like, you cannot do this. That is so my dad, though. Like he tries to take on the world at all times.
Oh my goodness. I'm happy about the outcome. And I feel so deeply about, the time that he went and it wasn't the right organ. But I know your mom made the right decision, and I'm happy about the outcome. But as a kidney transplant recipient myself, I really know how he felt at that.
I've met so many people within the transplant community over the past decade, but truly handfuls of kidney recipients who have had 3, 4, 5 false calls where they go into the hospital, they're ready for their transplant, and maybe their numbers aren't right, or it wasn't as good of a match as they thought. I mean, they truly are the most resilient individuals because they have come so close so many times and continue to keep up hope. And I can tell that's exactly how you are too.
Thank you. It's I got to pull myself together, but it does. It happens to people, but usually the outcome is wonderful. I did not have that experience. I also had a poster child transplant experience.
Oh, wonderful.
But I'm so thrilled that your father is doing well and that his transplant came along. He received the gift that he needed in time.
Thank you.
You have written a children's book about organ donation. What inspired you to do that?
My children's book is called The Gift of Life, and I have had great success going to high schools and middle schools and even universities, speaking with students about the importance of organ donation, what organ donation is, and why they should say yes at the DMV. But more than that, just to make an educated decision and to share that with their loved ones. But where I found a little bit of hesitancy was elementary schools. And it wasn't necessarily the topic that I think scared them. It was the lack of resources and having something that was a great tool for that age demographic. There were books out there, but it just didn't have all of the elements that I truly felt were necessary to convey what organ donation was in a really empathetic, gentle, yet fully understanding way. So that's what made me write my children's book. It took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but it's because I wanted it to be perfect. And I really can say it is my family's story, right down to the fact that the main character, Bailey Bear, is named after our puppy Bailey. And it has a page where I was able to dedicate the book to my father's donor. It's very personal. And I'm so proud to say that it's now being used across our country, and every county in Florida is utilizing it as a tool. It's been so well received, and I'm just grateful to have so many people realize that there is a need for this resource.
That is wonderful. So what impact do you think that book will have on kids and their families?
I think for different groups of kids, it's going to mean something different, right? So I had someone come up to me last year, actually, and she's a family friend of ours. And I didn't know much about her personally, but I know that she has a heart of gold. I did know that her son had passed away and that she takes care of her grandchildren often. And she utilized this tool to teach her grandchildren about the hero that their father was, because he was an organ donor. And just to know that this tool was being utilized for something so important, for a conversation that must have been excruciating to have, but also something that as a parent of a donor, you're so proud of.
Yeah.
That was honestly one of the biggest moments throughout my whole time working in the transplant community that I felt like I really was making an impact. But I've also had families that have no relationship to transplants and the organ donation community, and just being able to kind of teach their kid what that is. I want it to be used in any way possible. I partnered with organ procurement organizations that are using it for children whose loved ones are waiting for a transplant, who have lost, family members as donors. So it's been great to kind of touch every aspect of the community.
I love it. I love it. That's wonderful. Another gift to the community. So living donation is an option with livers. Did they offer that option for your father at the time he was waiting?
So for some reason, when my father was waiting for a transplant, living donation was not an option for him. And I don't know if it was at the time 10 years ago, maybe Jackson Memorial wasn't performing a lot of living liver donations, or if he was just too big. He's a taller man, and sometimes for live liver donations, they look for women or children most of the time. But for some reason, they just wanted a deceased donor's liver for him specifically.
Yeah, and 10 years ago, it definitely wasn't as well utilized living donation or
But
liver.
it's amazing. Yeah, I find especially living donation so interesting. And I was fortunate enough to meet, and I've only ever met one living liver donor the other day, and just hearing her journey and kind of the details of what happens when you are a living liver donor and how it grows back in your body and then it grows in the recipient's body. It's so fascinating. The liver is truly incredible.
It absolutely is. So the list of people waiting for kidneys is really long. What else can we do to raise awareness and encourage people to register to be organ donors when they're no longer on this earth?
It is something that I truly feel needs to be a household topic. Organ donation, like I mentioned previously, is something that almost isn't talked about until it's necessity, right? Until you're standing in the line at the DMV and you're asked and you have to make a decision, or you're sitting in the hospital with your loved one who could potentially be a donor. And those are not the times to have to think about organ donation for the first time. So I always urge people, again, whether you want to be a donor or you don't want to be a donor, just have those conversations, have a roundtable discussion with your family, hear the different ideas and opinions of those around you when it comes to organ donation, because I think a lot of the hesitancy around organ donation is something that could be talked through sitting down for 30 minutes. And that's why I really put emphasis on education, because it not only starts with education, but it starts with educating our younger generation so that they're going home and talking to their families. And it really is making a societal impact for generations to come.
I agree with you 100%. I think that's spot on. So what's one thing you want others to know about being a registered donor?
I think when people think about organ donation, it is something that can be scary for a lot of people. But what I've been able to see, both on the side of being a family with a recipient and also meeting countless donor families, it's that even on the darkest days, if you lose someone that you love, donation has always been the silver lining that gets some of these families through the hardest times. I am very aware that on my family's greatest day, it was another family's hardest day. But I really do feel that donation gives solace to families that lose loved ones, because it is a way to honor their loved one and to see life continue on in their honor. So really, if you're thinking about donation, if you're thinking about having that conversation with your family, talking about organ donation with your kids, it's really trying to put yourself in the position of honoring the legacy of those around you, whether if you're the organ donor or if a loved one is an organ donor. There's something so beautiful that can come out of it.
Well, thank you for taking this time to talk to me. It has been absolutely delightful to get to know you, to hear your story of pageants, and to hear the story of your dad, and to know that he's doing well. So I thank you very much for sharing all this with
Thank
me.
you. Thank you. And likewise, you're amazing. And I'm so happy that you have received your kidney and that you're doing wonderful. And it's just really great that you're giving back in this way. It's an honor to be on today, and I appreciate, you having me.
Thank you.
Organ donation is a gift that impacts families. It's an easy decision to make to be a hero when you leave this earth. If you want more information about organ donation, or you want to register to be an organ donor, please go to lifegoeson.com. That's LIFEGOESON.com. I'm Monica Fox, and this is The Journey Continues. Prevention is a key part of our mission at NKFI. That's why, at the end of each episode, we share a health tip.
Here's today's nutrition tip about probiotics and prebiotics. As defined by the National Institutes of Health, probiotics are live microorganisms that are intended to have health benefits when consumed or applied to the body. They can be found in foods such as yogurt, fermented foods, dietary supplements, and beauty products. Probiotics help your body maintain or replenish a healthy community of microorganisms. Probiotics may also influence your body's immune response. They've been used to treat gastrointestinal conditions like antibiotic-associated diarrhea, inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel disease, diverticular disease, dental disorders like tooth decay and gum disease, conditions related to allergies like hay fever, asthma, atopic dermatitis, and other conditions like acne, urinary tract infections, and upper respiratory infections. If you're looking to add some probiotic-rich foods to your diet, try yogurt, buttermilk, sourdough bread, cottage cheese, kombucha, tempeh, fermented pickles, fermented sauerkraut, kimchi, or miso soup. Prebiotics come from plant fibers and aid in the growth or activity of beneficial microorganisms in your gut. Fruits, vegetables, and whole grains are especially those that contain complex carbohydrates such as fiber and resistant starch, contain most of the prebiotics in our diet. Prebiotics can help you absorb calcium, change the rate at which foods cause your blood sugar to rise, ferment foods faster to help you have regular bowel movements, and keep the cells that line your gut healthy. Foods that contain prebiotics include apples, artichokes, asparagus, bananas, barley, berries, flax seeds, garlic, green vegetables, leeks, legumes, oats, onions, tomatoes, soybeans, and wheat. Some foods may also be fortified with prebiotics such as bread, cereals, and cookies. Try to get prebiotics from your food versus a supplement. With today's nutrition tip, I'm Melissa Prest, a registered dietitian nutritionist